I'm Cece Garrett, and I'm a clinical social worker in Washington State who specializes in supporting individuals, families, and communities impacted by hoarding disorder. One of the things that I offer through my non-clinical practice is an Ask Me Anything platform where family members, community members, individuals with hoarding behaviors, other professionals can submit a question about hoarding, and then I make a short video like this one in response. A recent website visitor submitted a question asking about what to do as parents are aging and the condition of the home is decreasing, their mobility is decreasing, and it's becoming our problem, the adult children's problem. And it's a really great question. And unfortunately, it's a place where there's not a lot of resources. Most families who are impacted by hoarding disorder in this way have family members, parents who don't agree that there's a problem. So they're not likely to be represented in our research studies because they don't seem to think that there's a problem. But there does come a point where functional capacity, physically, mentally, emotionally, as we age, starts to decline. And without intervention, one of the things we do know about hoarding behaviors is that it's persistent and it becomes degenerative. So it becomes worse. It doesn't get better. It doesn't stay the same. That's a little bit unique in that some other disorders just kind of are the same if they don't get treatment. This is not the case with hoarding disorder. We see that without intervention, things get worse. So if you're an adult child, like the person who submitted this question, what do you do as you're watching your parent or parents having more mobility problems, the level of clutter and the inability to navigate the home safely really becoming high risk? Well, there's a couple of things. One is we can really try to engage, and I want to say this at the outset. I also am an adult child and had to intervene with my mother's hoarding. And so I want to just say I get that this is probably something that most adult children have already done without much positive outcome. I get that. But there is a way to change how we communicate with our parents that sometimes, not always, I wish I had a magic formula to make just the right words for you that you could practice, present to your parent or parents, and that they would agree to accept some help. I don't have that. What I do have is just some pieces of communication that may be helpful. I don't have a magic wand, and I'm really sorry. It would be great. Man, I wish I'd had that magic wand myself. But one of the things that we can do is we can start having conversations about what our parents aren't able to do in their homes, concerns about their overall health, not really focusing on the condition of the home or on their possessions. Because here's the thing, when we focus on that, it's like having the conversation with somebody who has problematic drinking behaviors, right? The more we talk to them about the drinking, the more defiant, rebellious, and pushback they're going to give us. So we don't want to ignore this stuff. That's not the deal at all. We want to create a space where we're having a healthier conversation with our parents or other loved ones about the hoarding. And how do we do that? We make sure that our conversations are not all about the risks of falling and the stuff. We got to get rid of the stuff. We got to fix the problem, right? And that, again, not downplaying the importance, that is critical. But I know if you come to me and the only thing we ever talk about is something that's challenging for me, I'm probably not going to want to talk to you. I'm certainly not going to want to take your advice. I'm not going to engage with you. And just that natural defense that most of us have is we don't want to hear it. We push back. So that's one piece. There are times, however, where the conditions become so concerning that we may need help from outside agencies. If they live independently and they own their own home, we get really aggressive code enforcement, right? We can make a report to code enforcement. Most municipalities have code enforcement reporting that can be done anonymously. Again, code enforcement can't force their way in. They can't force anything. They can cause fines. And this is going to jeopardize the relationship, even if it's anonymous. That what ends up happening most of the time is that there's some little detail that we include that our parents just know. Joe Blow across the street didn't know that. and we've included it and they know. And one thing I can tell you about people with hoarding disorder and hoarding behaviors is because of the level of emotional dysregulation that they experience, their barometer for being fed a load of hooey, a line, very, very good. So they're going to know. They're going to know, right? And that said, sometimes we need to engage outside people, code enforcement. The other one is self-neglect in aging adults. So an adult protective services report. And here's the interesting thing, families can make these reports. Absolutely, families can make this report. That said, even as a professional, if I make a report to APS, I'm legally required to. It does damage a relationship. So you have to weigh that. Does it make sense to damage the relationship? And sometimes this is really helpful because I will say in Washington State, but other states as well, that there are funds, there are contracted providers who can go in and intervene. That said, APS is different than CPS. CPS is going in, they have legal right to go into the home and do inspections and interviews. Because APS is dealing with adults, unless a medical physician, an MD, has determined that the parent or person is physically, mentally incapacitated, which is another option, um, APS actually cannot force their way in. Now, there are many really good case managers who can have great conversations and sometimes do gain access. I hear a lot of times where they do have the ability to get in, and that clients will occasionally agree to have some level of intervention. That said, if you go that route, I want you to also try to protect your relationship and to advocate for your parent because some of these interventions are too large, too aggressive, and lack mental health care. And they can end up being just as bad as leaving things alone, right? Um, I know that I've seen where 6 months later, APS closes the case, the house has been downsized and checked off as being safe. And then there's a new report because, in fact, we have this rebound refilling up to 125%, according to one study. So we need to make sure that if we are going that route, that we've had a conversation, or that we're ready to say, like, hey, this is my last ditch effort, and whatever happens, happens. Just know that it's going to be a hard place. What else can be done? Well, if you're able to, and if you have a safe relationship, a mostly safe relationship with your parent, you can work on harm reduction targets. And I'm not going to tell you a lot because there's a really great book already written about this specifically for family members called Digging Out. Again, that's Digging Out by Dr. Michael Tompkins and Tamara Hartle. It's not a new book. I will tell you there's some pieces there that may be difficult to read, but when we're talking about joining with a parent who has these behaviors, it does require some personal work. And I'll, reading it through my lens as being a survivor of parental hoarder myself, of parental hoarding, it's really hard sometimes, some of these pieces. That said, they're real. We have to release some of the things that we really want if we want to see our parents accept help. And that's a hard piece. Again, lots of different ways to go about this, changing your language and your conversation, joining with your parent, which Digging Out we'll talk about at length. And again, I recommend very few books, but this is one that I do think is a great resource if you're choosing to be engaged in helping your parent. The final thing I want to say, and man, maybe I should go back and do this first. You don't have to be a significant part of any intervention for your parents. I'm going to say that again. No adult child has to be a significant part of an intervention for their parents. Do we get a lot of cultural and community pressure? For sure. That said, it is a mental health disorder, and the most effective outcomes really do include counseling. And I'll just tell you, as a counselor, as a licensed clinical social worker, I can't treat my own mother. I can't treat my child, my spouse. I can't treat my child's friends, right? So be aware. You don't have to be part of the team. I do recommend if you can establish and maintain it, and you don't have to. I 100% respect whatever boundaries you're expressing with your loved one. 100%. But if you are going to do this, just know you don't have to be part of the actual cleanup process or the downsizing or the harm reduction team. You have the choice not to. And I know that's a new thing that we don't often hear. So that's why it's important. Can you help? Do you want to help? Maybe. Do you have to? No. Thank you for submitting this question. If you're watching this later on my YouTube channel and you have a question, the link is below in the description so that you can submit your own question about hoarding. And I hope to post a response soon. Thanks.